Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to look at how to answer a Leaving Cert poetry question and get maximum marks. And this strategy can be applied to any poetry question going forward. So the poem we're going to use today is Revelation by Liz Lockhead. I'm going to give you a formula that you can apply to answering any poetry question. So let's look at question 1A. Select two phrases or images from the poem that you believe best captures the ferocious nature of the bull. So as you see, I have highlighted the key words in the question. Select two phrases or images best capture ferocious nature of the bull. So what we always do is we start off with an introduction, and in the introduction we use the words of the question. So, the following two phrases or images best capture the ferocious nature of the bull. That's our opening paragraph. Now we skip a line and we go to our next paragraph, and we're going to use the words quote and explain because they want us to find two quotes. And we're also going to put some logical order into our answers. And as you see highlighted in purple, first paragraph starts with firstly, and the second paragraph can start with the second phrase or secondly. So let's look at the first point. Firstly, the phrase, "He roared his rage," shows his ferocious nature. Please note, you put the quote in quotation marks. Open the quotation marks at the start, close the quotation marks at the end. One line of a quote is okay, do not put 3 or 4 lines of a quote. Then you explain why you chose this quote. Here the poem appeals to our sense of hearing. I can imagine the loud scary sound of the bull roaring in anger. The poet also uses alliteration of "or" here, such as roared rage, which creates a disturbing loud sound. So as it's a 10-mark question, first paragraph using quote and explain would get 5 points. Then skip a line and move on to your second paragraph. Quote, the second phrase is "his eyes swiveled." Again, we have put logical order on our paragraph by starting off with the second phrase, and we have put our quote into quotation marks, open and closed. Then you explain how that shows the ferocious nature of the bull. Here the poet appeals to our sense of sight. The young girl could see the bull's eyes rolling in his head with anger. This created a sense of fear in the girl and shows us how angry the bull was. So once again, you were asked to select two phrases or images, which constitutes making 2 paragraphs, each paragraph worth 5 marks. So that's the first short question answered. So we move on to the second one. Describe the young girl's reaction to her first encounter with the bull. First thing we do, highlight the key words in the question. Young girl's reaction, first encounter, which means first meeting with the bull. Next thing we do, we write an introduction paragraph using the words from the question. The following describes the young girl's first encounter with the bull. So we get 1 point out of 10 for making the introduction. Now we're going to use a secret formula called point, quote, explain. And examiners love this formula because it lays out your answer really clearly and puts good logical sequence into your ideas. So, PQE, point, quote, explain. I've highlighted these in yellow, green and blue. There is no need for you to write the actual words point, quote, explain in your answer. Just use the formula. E. So, firstly, you make your point, you use the word firstly. Firstly, she could only smell him because it was too dark in his outhouse. Quote, open quotation marks. at first only black, and the hot reek of him, close quotation marks. Then explain yourself. This shows me that she had no idea what was in the outhouse. However, she could smell the hot stench from him. There is no need to write the physical words point, quote, explain. Just follow that formula. So for your first paragraph, you get 3 out of 10. Skip a line, move on to your second paragraph. Again, as you can see, we're following the same formula the whole way through. Point, quote, explain. So, secondly, she started to see him gradually. Quote, open quotation mark. Then he was immense, his edges merging with the dark. Just a big bulk. Close quotation mark. And then you explain yourself. This shows us that gradually she could see the outline of the bull coming out of the dark, and he was huge. Skip a line onto your final paragraph. Again, point, quote, explain. Point, starting with finally, linking words, finally. Finally, she could hear him. Quote, open quotation mark, a roar to be really scared of. Close quotation mark. Explain yourself. This shows us that the bull was angry and his roar frightened the girl. So, each of those paragraphs, firstly, secondly and finally, would get 3 marks each out of 10, and the introduction would get 1. So there's how to get your 10 points. So, we go to the last question. The poet's description of the bull in the first stanza appeals to many of the reader's senses: sight, smell, touch, hearing. Find an example of each to support this view. Once again, we highlight the key words in the question. Description of bull, first stanza, appeals, reader's senses, sight, smell, touch, hearing, an example of each. So as usual, we start off with an introduction using the main words from the question. The following are examples of descriptions of the bull which appeal to our senses. We're going to use point, quote, explain as you saw above. So, point. Firstly, the poem appeals to our sense of sight. Okay, so firstly, the poem appeals to our sense of sight. Put a quote which supports this. Open quote, just a big bulk. Close quote. Explain yourself. We can imagine how big the bull seems to the girl. 2.5 points out of 10 for this because it has asked for 4 examples. Jump a line, new paragraph. Point, quote, explain. Secondly, the linking word. The poem appeals to our sense of smell. Open quotation, the hot reek of him. Close quotation. Explain. We can imagine how bad that hot stench of the bull is in that outhouse. 2.5 points for that. Jump a line, new paragraph. Point, quote, explain. Linking word, thirdly. Thirdly, the poem appeals to our sense of touch. Open quotation mark, tense with the chain's jerk. Close quotation mark. Explain. Here we can imagine how the bull is pulling his chain in anger. We can imagine how tense the chain is. Like before, 2.5 marks out of 10. Jump a line, final paragraph, formula, point, quote, explain. Finally, the poem appeals to our sense of hearing. Open quotation, he roared his rage. Close quotation. Here we can imagine how the loud sound of the bull roaring must have filled the outhouse. Again, 2.5 marks. Highlight the key words in the question. Use those key words to make your introduction. Make paragraphs following the formula point, quote, explain. And you should do fine. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Best of luck in your exams.